Okay, it's 2 o'clock Eastern, so I'm going to get started. My name is Liz Taylor, and I'm the Assistant Director here at National RTAP. We are really happy to have you all with us today. So today we're going to be talking about our new training course, Dispatching and Scheduling Training for Rural Transit Systems. Next slide, Lisa. Great. Before we get started, just going to go over a very few things about Zoom webinar. So everybody is muted. Please use the chat box to get help using Zoom webinar if you have any issues. And please use the Q&A for any questions that you would like to ask. We will address all questions at the end of the webinar unless they're appropriate to cut in at the time. The recording and slides from this webinar will be posted on the National RTAP website on the webinars page. Usually within 1 week it's posted. And we also will send a survey to get your feedback on the webinar. So we appreciate your time filling out that survey. Next slide. Great. So today we are, I'm going to start with a few introductory slides. Welcoming Lisa and doing a brief overview of National RTAP, as well as some background about the project. And then Lisa's going to go through the training and talk about the training components and the content, some of the e-learning features and the instructor-led training material features, and then showing you how to access and use the materials. And then we will also be talking about some guidance for managers, the best way to support your dispatchers and schedulers, some hiring and training guidance, how you can help set up the workspace for your staff, the importance of teamwork, and then a little bit about technology for these positions. Next slide. Next slide. All right, great. So, and yes, the Q&A will be at the end. That wasn't on the agenda, but yes. Okay, so I'm really happy to present Lisa Koch today. She's with the University of Kansas Transportation Center, where she serves as the Associate Director of Research, Partnerships, and Innovation, and she's also the Director of Kansas RTAP. So, and she teaches classes at the university. So Lisa wrote the Dispatching and Scheduling Manual, and she worked with us on adapting the content into an e-learning format. Lisa previously has worked as a transit consultant and also at Kansas DOT, and she brought a wealth of experience to this project based on her work with local transit systems and as a trainer. So she was really wonderful to work with. So for those of you who are not familiar with National RTAP, we are a technical assistance center funded through the FTA Section 5311 program. We provide free training materials like the dispatching and scheduling course and other technical assistance to research to rural and tribal transit providers and state RTAP programs. We have a review board that helps guide our work and make sure that what we're doing is relevant and useful. And that's made up of state DOT and rural and tribal transit agency staff. And actually, I should mention, we are going to be having a solicitation for new members later this fall or very early in 2022. So keep an eye out for that. We'd really love for you all to nominate yourselves or someone you know so that we can get some new perspectives and representation on our review board. You can learn more and access all of our resources on our website. Okay, next slide. Lisa's controlling it because she has most of the slides on this slide deck. So originally National RTAP had a scheduling and dispatching training that was developed in the early 2000s. So it was definitely in need of an update. And this, it was an old disc that wasn't really working. So we were really excited to update this. And Lisa and the team at the contractor Sky Multimedia, who put the whole e-learning course together and managed the development of the book, they came up with really great content and a really great format to make the new version have some additional, like I said, content and just a really interactive and engaging course, something very comprehensive. And it can be used as for new dispatchers and schedulers, and for more seasoned staff for refresher training. Next slide. So like I said, wanted to thank Sky and Lisa, but also we had numerous review board members who helped us in the development of the content, looking at the outline and reviewing things as we went along. So thank you to everyone who contributed. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm really excited to share with you just a little preview of the training, give you a sense of what is in the training, and we'll show some videos. And then, like Liz said, we'll do some tips and tricks at the end for being a manager of dispatchers and schedulers. So to meet the diverse needs, we developed 3 components: a manual, an e-learning course, and instructor-led training. The manual is available in printed format or can be downloaded as a PDF through the National RTAP resource library. The e-learning course is available at the National RTAP e-learning site, and the instructor-led training includes a PowerPoint presentation and an instructor guide. The manual can be used for self-paced individual self-study. It is also useful as a reference after completing the e-learning program or the in-person course. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the specific features in the course that are really great for just independent resources. So we'll talk about that through this webinar. The content in all forms is equivalent. Each section includes a statement of objectives. Students are reminded what was covered in a summary in the end. So you have the objectives at the beginning and a summary at the end, and lessons are reinforced in a knowledge check at the end. In the in-person learning, the instructor can refer students to the manual or prepare knowledge check handouts for distribution. The material is divided into 11 sections. So let's take a look at each one of the sections. So we start with the introduction. The purpose of this piece, which is a little bit new, the first couple sections are new with this course, is that we wanted a course that would be able to take a person from their first day at work until they were ready to do dispatching and scheduling on their own. And one thing that it was missing in the previous course was just the basics of transit, the basics of transit planning, the basics of what transit is and where you are in the transit environment, because we understand that a lot of dispatchers and schedulers don't come from the transit world. They may not even come from the transportation world. So being able to give some information on why your job is important, what you do that is critical to the transit agency, and a few other just kind of informative things at the beginning of the course really sets the stage so that you can get someone started and get a lot of the learning they need done in this specific course. We carry that on to section 2, which is working in a transit environment. And this is really about what it's like to work for a transit organization. It gives an introduction to colleagues, the different individuals you'll work with in a transit agency and why you might work with them, all the way from your CEO to your board to a mobility manager, a marketing person, your grants administrator. So helping folks to understand what the value of those individuals are and how you may interact with them. We also start the discussion of transit regulations. We talk about Title VI, EEO, some information related to FMCSA and to the ADA. And we talk about ADA also in a separate chapter. So it gives just a brief introduction to those things. We also talk at length about the federal drug and alcohol program because we know that schedulers and dispatchers are usually in the pool. So we talk about that a little, but it's important to supplement this training with the required drug and alcohol training. In section 3, this is where we talk about transit service types. Again, understanding that a lot of the folks that start in transit agencies in this role may have not come from the transportation or transit environment. So they may not be familiar with a lot of the different terminology that we use every day. They might not know the difference between a fixed route system and a deviated fixed route system, or what a van pool is, how you use taxi cabs and ride hailing in this type of a service. And so we go into depth about that. We talk about about service planning just a little bit on fixed route, partnering with other organizations that provide transportation service. And all of this is summarized on a single sheet, which we encourage folks to pull out, take a copy of, put it on their pin board so that you have a one-stop shop resource for service types. In section 4, we talk in depth about the Americans with Disabilities Act because we know that dispatchers and schedulers do a lot of work that is the implementation of that act, and that there are nuances of that depending on the type of service you provide. So we talk about the general provisions that apply to all types of federally funded transportation. And then we talk specifically about complementary paratransit and where there are differences between those two. We, like in the previous section, we have a page, you can see it on the right, where we have kind of a one-page document that gives you some general provision information. Great to have as a reference at your desk. Section 5 and 6 are expanded in this, this training because we know the importance of communication skills. So you're going to see communication skills in section 5 and customer service in section 6, because communication isn't just with the customer, it's with colleagues and partners. So we wanted to have a kind of basic foundation of communication skills before we talk about how you implement those with the customers. You can see on the left the different sections that are included in there. I think these are great for everyone in your organization. We do apply them in a lot of ways to the dispatcher and scheduler, but I think this is something that anyone in your organization can use. And as a reminder, we have check your knowledges at the end of every section. So there are knowledge checks at the end of every section. So section 6 is specific to customer service. So understanding who your customers are and how you communicate with them, and specifically how you may communicate with specific user groups. So a lot of times dispatchers are dealing with elderly population, with people who may have cognitive disabilities, and understanding methods for communicating with people that have a hard time comprehending what you're saying, or that you have a hard time comprehending, is really important in this work. Something we heard about a lot as we surveyed folks at the beginning of the project when it comes to customer service is resolving complaints, dealing with challenging situations, and dealing with difficult people. It's something we deal with. People get frustrated, and it's really hard to come up with the words in the moment. And so we wanted to at least get people started. So you can see on the right here, this page 56, again, we have a one-pager that really can help with resolving complaints, reducing the volume on situations. But in all the pages, we really start by kind of giving sample language, because we know a lot of times that's the most helpful thing. Section 7 and 8 are about the role of the dispatcher and scheduler, and new to this course is a lot more depth in these areas. In the dispatcher area, we talk specifically about how you communicate, how you coordinate both with schedulers and drivers, the importance of record keeping, considerations based on service type. We know that a demand response, an individual who is doing a dispatching for demand response has a very different role than an individual who's doing dispatching for fixed route service. And a lot of them kind of work amongst the two services. So it's important to understand those considerations for call ahead issues related to issues while route is in service. I'm really proud of section 8. This is where there's been a lot of growth in the training. We wanted to make sure a scheduler had resources to understand the steps of scheduling, and to understand them as discrete steps, and not just you get all the rides, you figure out how to put them in order, and you put them out. We wanted to demystify this and make a step-by-step, whether it's demand response or deviated fixed route. So you'll find a lot of new things in this course related to that. We also talk about managing cancellations and changes, because that's when a scheduler may have to work in the moment to shuffle things around. And it can be challenging, and it can be challenging to kind of identify how to move through those step by step. We hear a lot about technology and the importance of technology in transportation. And we wanted to not train people on a specific technology, but allow for the understanding of technology and the technology that could apply to their role. They may or may not have a choice of the technology that they're using, but getting this information will allow them to understand what each of these things are, whether it's a non-proprietary calendar schedule that you may do in an Excel spreadsheet or in a Google Doc, or whether it is very specific to this industry, transit dispatching and scheduling software, where we also talk about what you may consider when determining a technology solution. And I'm going to show that content a little later. Additionally, we talk about the use of social media just briefly. So because we understand that social media is really important to transit and transportation, both as a way of getting out information and hearing back from clients. Customers have an expectation when it comes to social media that may not be the job of the dispatcher or scheduler, but they may hear about it through their work, through a call. And so it's important to have that conversation, and also just understanding the confidentiality of the information that they receive and using it in the technology format. A new section is working as a transit team. In our surveying and in discussions with transit providers and in our work itself, we know that success can really hinge on a working relationship between dispatcher, scheduler, and driver. And that can be challenging because the driver's out there in the field, and these are all very different jobs. So there might not be a lot of understanding and empathy about that role. We provide some ideas for how to improve that teamwork. We also provide information on how to communicate with two-way radios, because we know that although a lot of transit systems are using enhanced technology on their vehicles, a lot of them are still using those two-way radios, and there is a very specific standard for how you communicate on those devices. And so we wanted to provide that material. Section 11, the final section of the course, is specific to talking about transit incidents. The dispatcher specifically can be kind of the point of convergence when it comes to transit incidents. The bus driver contacts them. They may be communicating with management, maybe communicating with emergency response folks, and providing direction to the driver. And so it's essential for the dispatcher to both understand that and be able to replicate it. So something we recommend in here is, reading through this section, understanding this section, but it's also important for managers to consider doing like a tabletop exercise so that a dispatcher is understanding in real time what they need to do to manage an incident. We're through the course content, so I want to talk a little bit about activities and other information that's provided. So we have activities in each chapter. These are different than the knowledge checks. These are other ways to gather information. They could be very specific to an in-person learning experience, like doing an ADA scavenger hunt and seeing where in your transit agency you have Braille or sidewalks or wheelchair restraints. Or they can be just multiple choice, like shelter in place or evacuate, where you have a option and you choose whether it's best to shelter in place or evacuate. These activities include discussion prompts for in-person learning, quizzes, or scheduling exercises. The scheduling exercises are really helpful, especially if you're getting someone who's just newly learning about scheduling, because it allows them to apply the process that they're learning in the course in a kind of static atmosphere. Like I said before, we have quick reference and phone scripts. There's a lot of these that are both in the materials and then in the appendix so that you could have them in one place, easy to read. So those considerations and diversity awareness, that's a really helpful one. What you need to know about demand response for dispatchers, phone script scheduling, phone scripts of difficult or angry customers. These are great tools to just have pinned up on your board or have in a binder next to you. So when something happens, you can grab them quickly. And I'll talk about the e-learning features now. I'm really excited about the e-learning course. It's easy to use, fun, interactive, well-designed. There's a lot of clicking you have to do, so you can't be asleep while you're doing the course. There's video commentary, and I'll show you a video commentary in a moment so you can see what it looks like, and video scenarios. The video commentary and scenarios include the role of the dispatcher, interacting with passengers, taking trip requests, adjusting schedules, emergency situations. There's a lot of really helpful ones that help a dispatcher to understand their role through watching it on video. This was really a unique thing to do during the pandemic. We had to find a way to record these scenarios in a safe environment. We did this last year at the height of the pandemic, but I'm really excited about the results. So I'm going to switch over to YouTube for a second to play a video segment. So excuse me while I do that. All right. So this is a video segment that's on dispatching and scheduling in difficult situations.
Sooner or later, you'll run into a difficult situation where a passenger has a hard time communicating because they're upset or because they have other challenges expressing themselves. In these situations, I've learned the most important thing is to stay calm and focused. I let the caller know that they can take the time they need. This can mean letting them vent without interruption. I use simple words and don't interrupt them when they're talking. When I think I understand the situation, I repeat back what I've heard. If I'm not sure I understand, I say so. If there's anything else demanding my attention that must be addressed quickly, I put the caller on hold and address it so I can focus on the call. If I expect to be away more than a minute or two, I let the caller know and assure them I will be back, or I offer to call them back. I found that if I pay attention and do my best to be kind and empathetic, even situations that seem impossible at first can be resolved.
All right. So the great thing about this course is that we have we have all the course materials on the National RTAP YouTube page. We do this because in-person learning, it's a lot easier to kind of go back and forth between the YouTube and the presentation, other than embedding it in the presentation and making the file really large. So I'll show you another one while I'm here.
Being a transit driver often requires me to do many things at once, so I can use all the help I can get. When I'm driving, I need to stay on schedule, know where I'm going, collect fares, get passengers on board, provide customer service, and of course, drive safely. It's so helpful to have a dispatcher who gives me information about the passenger's needs and is proactive when I make requests. Schedulers who know the area and are realistic about how long it takes to get from one place to another makes a huge difference. I also know it's my job to talk to the schedulers regularly and tell them what works and what doesn't. To make sure we're communicating, our operations manager, Alex Vega, has us meet regularly with the schedulers to provide feedback.
All right. So you'll see up here, we have a lot of different videos. They're all in the e-learning course embedded, and they're here if you want to use them on an ad hoc basis. So you have interactions with customers, interactions between staff. So there's a lot of things that you can take a look at, and it's all here on the YouTube site. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the presentation.
And Lisa, while you're getting going, it might be in the slides coming up, but they are all on a playlist in the YouTube. So you can go to the playlist. So they're all there together, and they are all labeled. And if you're interested in getting them on a disc, we can ship them to you that way. I think they're all on the instructor's disc, but we're happy to send you these materials in any format that works for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. So another one of the features is that we give people options for how to, excuse me, it took me a while to get back on the page. So in this course, we have quizzes. This is a quiz this is information to help with the quiz. There's really great resources in here. I'm pretty excited about it. So links to the PDF are available for quick learning while you're in the course. So if you're taking the course and you want to see that resource, you just click up here and that gives you that information. So it's really great to reference back and forth between things, to get information to keep for later. So the course design is really helpful. So there you go. So you can see when you click on that resources tab, all of the different resources are provided. So you have effective telephone communications, phone scripts, process for receiving a complaint, etc. So this is a great resource. And then a quick reference content for the manual is included in the e-learning so that you can have that with the e-learning. So the e-learning features include a menu navigation, you see this on the slide, and a transcript of the narration if you have someone who would rather read that than be able to listen, or if they're in an environment where they can't listen to something.
Lisa, I don't know if it's just my screen, but I think it might be frozen. I'm not seeing, I didn't see all like the pop-ups. Oh, there we go.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I think it might be back. Good. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So here's the transcript. So if you have to just read the course, or if you want to go back and read a specific thing, or there was a lot of content that would be helpful to you, you can read that in the notes. A presentation, activities, the instructor guide allow this course to be conducted in person by a local trainer. So what's included in that package is the just general PowerPoint presentation that has the project from beginning to end, an instructor guide, and you're seeing a version of the instructor guide here that shows a slide, notes, and then some responses to the activities. So you have kind of, you're going to be asking questions, you're going to ask people to reflect, and this gives you a little bit of a guide on what you might hear, and if you don't hear it, you can bring up. It tells the time that's expected for each slide so that you'll stay on schedule, and then where in the manual you can see this information. The in-person activities really add a new dimension to the project or to the program so that you can have people working together in a way that's very specifically written for in-person education. The videos are available on YouTube or on a disc, like Liz said. And at the end, you get a certificate of completion form so that you can fill out certificates for individuals who have participated. We also offer a course feedback form so that you can get feedback on the course by those who received it in person. The e-learning course is available at the National RTAP e-learning page, which is shown up here. This is where you're going to see it on. When you click on the National RTAP e-learning website, this is what it looks like, and you'll go down to the e-learning courses, and that's how you'll access it. The manual and instructor material are available in the resource library, so you see that on the slide as well. The videos are also available in the dispatching and scheduling playlist on the National RTAP YouTube channel, like Liz had mentioned. So there's a lot of ways you can get this information. If you're having a hard time locating it, contact Liz or contact anyone at National RTAP and they can help you out. So I'll take a step back here for a moment. This is just the introduction to materials. Liz, I don't know if there are any questions that are about the materials that I should address now.
I don't see any questions, but feel free to put them into the Q&A box. And while I give people a moment to do that, couple just additional things with pretty much all of our training, our hard copy materials, you can order up to 100 at a time. So if you're doing a course of some sort, you can order a big batch to have for that. And all of the materials are free of charge and we ship for free. Usually we appreciate as much heads up as you can give us, but we usually do 2-day shipping. So we can usually do a pretty quick turnaround. And you can also tell us whether you want, because with the learner's guides, you can either get the videos on the disc, you can also get the e-learning course on a disc or a thumb drive. So if for some reason you didn't want to do the e-learning course through our e-learning platform, you could do it as a standalone course. The only thing is that wouldn't track the learner's completion in the e-learning system, whereas in our e-learning system, it tracks that and you can have that documentation in there. The e-learning system does require you to sign up, but it's free of charge and you can access all of our other courses on there. If you have any trouble using that or any questions, we'd be happy to walk you through it. And I think that's it. So just wanted to add in those couple extra things about just accessing our materials.
Excellent. And I think was a hand raised.
So there is just a clarification. This is an introduction to the training materials. This course, I think, to do all the content, well, the e-learning course is 4 hours long, approximately. And to do this whole book, to go through it would be maybe a whole day, a half day, would take a chunk of time. So we're really covering how to use these materials in this webinar. And then right now, Lisa's going to get into a little bit of guidance for managers, some of which is actually not necessarily in the training. So it would be great for you all to stay for that. But it is mostly an introduction to what is in the training and how to best utilize the materials. If people are interested in National RTAP putting on a webinar version of the course, we can look into that, but there is the e-learning course also. We have one other question. Are the guides that are mailed 3-hole punched or are they binded? So they are a coil binding. And they're not 3-hole punched. And it is a pretty hefty manual. It's like 180 pages, I think. So I hope that answers your question. And of course, you can print out, there's a PDF version, which you can print out and use in whatever way you would like. So you could do that and do a 3-hole punch if that's better for your purposes. Okay. Why don't we move forward, and please, thank you for those questions, and please ask any others as we go along.
So we wanted to provide some guidance for managers as you're thinking about hiring dispatchers, schedulers, equipping the office, things like that. So these are just some helpful tricks as you're thinking through your hiring and staffing program. So how to support your dispatchers and schedulers. It's a hard job, and it's a job where you're on the phone all the time. If you're a dispatcher, if you're a scheduler, you're doing a lot of computations. It can really be stressful. So having an encouraging and supportive manager is really important. Someone that's going to back them up if they have any challenges, who will allow a call to be escalated to them and understand the value of providing good customer service if that occurs, to provide them training and technical assistance if they need it, and just be thankful and appreciative of the job that they're doing. They need technology that works and aids in the completion of the job, whatever that technology resource may be. And it's very different depending on the type of program, the amount of routes or vehicles operating in a specific day, and the abilities of the provider, or the abilities of the organization. It's important for there to be a cooperative team and for the team to have regular opportunities to communicate. I'll talk about this a little bit more when I talk about teamwork, but having very specific times where the driver, the dispatcher, and the scheduler communicate, so that they understand the importance of each other's jobs, the things that the other can do to help the individual be successful in their job. I think that's really valuable. A safe and comfortable workspace with the necessary tools is exceptionally important. One of the most important things, and I think I talk about this a little later, is headsets for dispatchers so that they have both hands-free, an environment where there could be where it's not too loud so that people can pick up the phone, a place with a comfortable chair and a desk that fits with them ergonomically, and a space for them to set up things that might help them. And then training on components of the job and any technology used. We want to make sure that dispatchers and schedulers aren't being put on the job until they're comfortable in that work. That helps the agency to be successful. You think about your driver and your dispatcher specifically as the front door of your agency. Those are the people that your passengers will interact with the most and receive service from in the most direct way. And so it's important that your dispatcher and scheduler feel comfortable in the role that they're doing and that the technology that's being used. And then just space to take a break. This is a job where you're on the phone a lot or you're in front of your computer a lot, that you might have to be put in a situation where you have to deal with an emergency or a cancellation. And being able to walk away, take a break, vent, relax is important to be the ability of providing a successful service and a service that where people feel comfortable calling, asking questions, getting rides dispatched. It's hard to find great staff. We all know that, especially drivers, but it's not very easy to find great dispatching and scheduling staff because it's a job where people have to communicate and be on the ball and be able to do some multitasking, other things like that. Social media advertising, we find that as a great way to pick up dispatchers in your local area. I encourage people to geofence their advertising so that if you're looking for a dispatcher, you are geofencing that advertisement so only people in your region see it. It's very cost effective. We all see social media ads, and this is one that you could really get a lot of possible applicants from social media. We also encourage you to coordinate with tech schools, universities, community colleges, their career centers. A lot of tech schools and community colleges have courses that are similar to what you would need for dispatchers and schedulers, or at least the job requirements would be similar. So it's a great place to post that information. I find outdoor temporary signs, whether they're banners hung on a fence or they're signs that are similar to kind of political signs posted, will get a lot of drive-by traffic. So that's a great thing. I was in Colorado last summer and just driving through a rural community, and there was a banner posted to a sign that the local transit agency was looking for drivers. Great way to get that word out there. Word of mouth from current employees and helping with recruitment bonuses if you can is really important. Your best recruitment is going to be people who do the job. They understand who could do this job, and they understand what it takes to be successful. And so having your drivers, your dispatchers, your schedulers, your administrative staff receive bonuses for recruiting people they think would be good at the job, it's really, really helpful. It's important that you hire to the skills necessary for the job. I think we get into situations where you don't have a lot of applicants, so you take who you can get. But it's important to think through what are those skills that are important for dispatchers and schedulers, and I list them on here. A dispatcher's got to be able to think on the fly and do so with composure. They need to be able to multitask, and they need to have good customer service skills. I'll talk in a moment about jobs that really dovetail to that work, and there's a lot of good ones that may be a fit that's not so natural. For schedulers, there needs to be mathematical or analytical skills. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have a bachelor's degree in mathematics, but someone who can show that they are good at organization, understanding things, solving puzzles. Also, teamwork's really important because that person's going to work with the operations manager. They're going to work closely with the dispatcher and with others on the staff. So that ability to input all of that information from other people is helpful. and the ability to make decisions quickly and the empowerment of making decisions quickly. We don't want somebody who's afraid to make a choice or feels like they need to talk to their manager before they can finalize the route. We need people that have confidence in the work they do and the ability to make those decisions quickly. So let's look at how that translates to jobs. So I find that really good dispatchers come from customer service or social service environment. Retail and food service, these are people who are working on their feet all day, doing customer service constantly and doing multitasking. So while they don't have, or they may not have phone skills, or they may not have other skills that would be more related to office work, they understand the core of the job, which is to provide a good customer experience and work in situations that may be stressful. Social service, individuals who work in social service organizations, like someone who may work with the developmentally disabled or may work with the homeless or others similar to that, really that dovetails really well to that, because these folks are looking to solve a problem. They're looking to help somebody. They understand communicating with folks who may have different abilities. The one thing that's important when you train someone who comes from a social service background is to understand the scope of their job and not trying to solve all the problems that a caller might have. Doesn't mean you don't provide resources, but really focusing on the job at hand. And then call centers, these are folks that are on the phone all day. They understand that that can be exhausting. So they have the stamina to do a whole shift on the phone. I think that's a really important thing. The schedulers, supply chain management, logistics, shipping companies, postal service, these are folks that understand the dimensions of the job related to getting a person, a package, a thing from a point A to point B. That's a really good thing. If you have drivers that you find understand the quantitative part of that, the problem-solving part of that, it might be worth thinking about as they progress in their career, finding a way to move them into a scheduling environment and seeing if that's successful. Drivers are going to understand the road demands. So they're going to understand how long it takes to get point A to point B. They understand what things could stop a successful route, whether it's traffic conditions, weather, putting someone on the lift, things like that. They'll understand and be able to use their experience to provide adequate time for that. It's important that in concert with this training, you have other trainings that support some of the other things that dispatchers and schedulers need to know. This course references the fact that agencies have locally developed employee and ridership policies, but it's up to your agency to provide that training on your policies. And that's something you should do pretty early on in the development of a new employee, because they're applying those policies all the time, all day. I think especially with ridership policies, it's important to refresh that training. And if there's any change in the ridership policies, to be very specific and overt with telling dispatchers, telling them how that applies to their job and what they need to do to inform passengers of a change. Like I said earlier, the drug and alcohol program, because they are most likely in the drug and alcohol pool, they'll need to be trained on that specifically, and that should happen early in their education as a dispatcher or scheduler as well. This course talks quite a bit about the ADA, but I think there's still components you might want to do through the National RTAP course or through locally derived courses, and do that pretty early on. Emergency procedures as well. We talk about that here in this course, but there are also other courses that are a really good supplement for that information. And National RTAP has a recently developed course that is really great for that. And also, like I said earlier, doing tabletop exercises so that you're not just learning this philosophically, but you know how to apply it. And then customer-driven service, RTAP provides that course as well. Just another way to get information and tools so that your dispatchers and schedulers feel comfortable in working in customer service. So it's important to create a workspace that engages your dispatcher and scheduler, that they feel comfortable working at. That includes having a comfortable spot, having the policies and procedures in a location where they can access it quickly and where they have specific things tabbed that they may go to regularly, like if there's ridership policies regarding putting customers on a plan if they haven't been making their rides, things like that. Contact information for organizations that provide transportation services if you're not able to provide that. And that if you are having a customer that wants to go on a regional trip and you only provide local service, understand that the common requests you get and have a strategy for that. That might be by working with your local mobility manager. It may be working with volunteer driving companies that help people that specifically may need additional aid, like if someone is getting dialysis and needs assistance after they're out of their dialysis appointment, getting a little more special care, getting into their vehicle. Understanding that volunteer organization and knowing how to get someone in touch with that is really helpful. Similarly, contact information for organizations that your passengers may need or may ask for regularly. We hear about the library, social service organizations, or other organizations that can support your transit clients. So if they're in need of something, you can connect to them with that. If they need help doing their taxes, for example, it's easy enough to say, well, that's not my job, I don't know. Or you can say, you know, that those resources are available at the library. Let me give you that number. And then, like I said earlier, contact information for transit agencies nearby in case you need to coordinate a regional trip. And if there's some sort of MOU or process for how regional trips are coordinated, having that information nearby so that they know the process steps. Something that I think is important in anyone's work environment is having pictures or quotes that make you smile. Dispatchers especially will have phone calls that will kind of try them and make them frustrated or tired or angry, and just having things at their desk that when they're in a moment where they're trying to decide if they need to escalate or reduce, being able to look at a picture of your kids or take a picture of a vacation you went on or a quote that makes you laugh can really allow you that moment to kind of take a breath. I'll talk a little bit about teamwork. I talked about this earlier in the presentation, and let me make sure we're doing okay on time. Teamwork's essential to this job, and the people you generally do teamwork with aren't in your role. So like I said earlier, there's important to have those regular meetings with drivers, dispatchers, and schedulers so they can say, a driver can say to a dispatcher, you know, I had a passenger yesterday that had a hard time hearing. It helps me if you put that in the manifest so that I know that this person may need other ways of getting directions from me. Daily check-ins with operations managers so that there's a time every day where the dispatcher, the scheduler, and the operations manager get together to understand the fleet conditions and the staffing for the next day or for the next couple of days is really helpful. It helps schedulers to understand demands. An example of that is if you know, if an operations manager knows that they're going to be short-staffed in a few days, if they can get that information to the scheduler ahead of time, there can be some kind of negotiation of trips, or you can put trips earlier in the day or load trips so that you could get more people on the vehicle. That all just helps with problem solving. So we're not creating problems, we're resolving them. I think, like I said earlier, emergency scenario training is really important. The most important thing I think on this is cross-training. If you can have your dispatcher or your scheduler get on the bus for a day and see what that driver's doing. If you can have your driver spend an hour or two sitting next to the dispatcher or going through the process with the driver, that provides some empathy and understanding. It makes that person a person, it makes that job real. And so you're going to want that person to succeed. A scheduler, if they get in the vehicle and realize how big the vehicle is and how small the road is, they might schedule differently. Or understanding what it takes to pick up a passenger, whether they have a mobility challenge or not, that will help them more than just telling them. So I'm going to wrap up with a discussion about technology. We talked about it a little. So there's off-the-shelf applications that you can use, whether it's Oracle, Google Sheets, Microsoft Excels, just database programs, shared document applications, those types of things. So some common ones that are used are spreadsheets and database applications, shared document applications like a Google Doc, or calendar applications like Microsoft Outlook or Google Calendar. So these can be used in smaller organizations that have a smaller fleet, a more reduced service area, that aren't going to need the problem solving that comes with a specific proprietary program. Proprietary application technology is usually integrated into a broad package that may include built-in reporting functions or billing and payment options that goes all the way from soup to nuts, where from getting the call to scheduling it to delivering the service all in one package. Those are really great for organizations that have a high dispatching and scheduling volume. It's great for when you have regular riders, because it can really automate a lot of those kind of regularized needs. It's really great for dealing with change management and cancellations. And again, it's just when there are real-time opportunities, when you can see the vehicle in real time, you as a dispatcher can have a better sense of where the vehicle is, how late they may be, or how early they may be, and that provides a better customer service for the passenger. There are some benefits of integration. This is something you're going to hear a lot from dispatchers and schedulers who've been in the dispatching and scheduling environment for a long time. They know how they do their work, and if you bring in some sort of new technology, you may get some pushback. Drivers the same way. So allowing them to understand that it configures travel times to a maximum level, that it automatically flags requests from passengers who've been suspended, it tracks historic travel times, which provides more accurate time estimation. It highlights and resolves duplicative customer trip and files. So there's a lot of things that it can do that just having your own document or your own program can't do. And then customer transit communication systems. So there are many forms that you can use to communicate with your customers. Voice communication is the simplest and most cost-effective way. Section 10 really talks about two-way radios, use of cell phones, if that's something that your organization uses, and the appropriate usage of that. So it can be effective, a form of communication, but you want to make sure that drivers are careful and not violating company policies or state laws, which may mean they aren't able to use the cell phone while the vehicle is running or while they're in the vehicle. So you need to think through some of the dimensions of that. And then mobile data terminals or tablets. That's probably the most comprehensive level of service that you can have for a passenger or a driver on board. It allows for full manifest documentation, routing, inspection reports, other things. At the moment, changes to manifests. It really is great for those who need that type of service. And here are some considerations for technology. You want to think through what hardware might be right for the agency. So if you have a technology solution that is going to require multiple monitors or require a tablet, you want to think through that and add that cost in. You want to ask if the agency will need new computers, additional servers, more cloud storage. One thing we find with dispatching and scheduling software, much like if you're adding cameras to your vehicles, they take a lot of storage. And so you want to think through the storage requirements and the storage retention requirements as well. Also think about whether you're solving a short-term problem or a long-term problem, or if there's a short-term problem, is it just a symptom of a long-term problem? And so really thinking of whether this is a short-term solution or is a long-term solution that the agency expects to face year over year, and then understanding the cost relating to that. Understanding the plan for implementation. This is important for schedulers, dispatchers, drivers, because a lot of these trainings require, or a lot of these technology solutions require some sort of training. They require the staff to be there while it's being implemented. So you need to make sure you have staff that you have enough staff on schedule for a day, that you have people using the old thing while you're training on the new thing. And it can be really messy. You want to make sure you have an adequate time and budget for training. And you want to make sure that staff can be taken away from the job to do the training, and that you have a plan for refresher training. Also, a lot of these require installation in vehicles. So how are you going to take vehicles out of service to do this? Are you going to do it on a weekend if you provide Monday through Friday service? Are you going to do one vehicle at a time? And how much is that going to cost, or what's the cost differential if you do one at a time with the person or the organization that's installing your software? And then, is there a budget available for annual operating costs? A lot of these proprietary software specifically may have a upfront cost, a capital cost, but then it has annual operating costs, and those generally increase year over year. So you want to make sure that you're thinking that through and making sure you have budget every year allocated towards the software. So that's just kind of a little snapshot of some considerations for dispatching and scheduling. But we have a few minutes left to talk through questions and answers if there are any.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Lisa. And we did this session a couple weeks ago, and I just thought it was so great, some of the extra information that Lisa had to share and her expertise. So glad that we could fit some of that in here to help managers of this staff. So the questions, one question came in about the e-learning site, and it might be a personal troubleshooting issue that we'll connect with offline, but if we have time, I'd be happy to do a brief demo of getting started on our e-learning site if anybody would be interested. So I'll just wait and see if any other questions come in about this training or the presentation today. So, okay. I don't know what rock chalk is. Must be an inside joke, but
it is from the University of Kansas. It's
okay, I figured.
Our saying.
Awesome. Okay, so I am sharing my screen now. So if anybody has to run, go right ahead. Please contact us if you have any questions, and thank you everyone for joining. Really, we want to help you if you have any issues using our materials or have any suggestions or something you'd like to see. We won't do a major overhaul of this again in the near future, but we're always interested in ways to improve what we offer. So please be in touch, and all of our contact information is on our website, or I'd be happy to, I don't know if we had a final slide with our contact information, but I can also put that in the chat. So here is our e-learning site. And you can look at all of our courses here on the courses tab, but you do need to register in order to actually open them. So here's the dispatching and scheduling. And if you click on the title, so that comes up because you're not logged in. If you click on the title, you'll see a brief description. And then to register, you click up here in the upper right, and you fill this out. The access code is not necessary. The access code would be if you create a learning team. So if you have a transit agency and you want to add all your learners, you can have a learning team, and you, if you're the manager, can be the manager of that team and can view your learner progress, get their transcripts, things like that. So you, as the manager, you can either add all the learners or you can give them an access code, which we'll give you, and they can put it in here, and then they would automatically be put into your team. But anyone can register at any time, and they don't need to be approved. It just goes to your email address, and then you create a login. So if you want to set up a learning team, you go to this agency request form. and you fill out this form, and that's when we will set your team up for you. A lot of this information is just for us. We're just interested, but we do need to know, this basic information, and we will put you in to the state that you're in, and we'll create your team, and we'll give you the access code, and we'll make you the manager. And then you can go back, you can, there are two different ways to add your learners. You can do it manually, or you can do a bulk upload if you have a lot from a spreadsheet. And we'd be happy to help you with anything with the e-learning site. You can email elearning@nationalrtap.org, or we do have a chat, a live chat, so you can get help that way. And so there shouldn't be any issues with the site. If there is, we again would be happy to help you. There are other materials in there, like some of the instructor materials are also in a folder on the e-learning site. We just wanted to provide things in as many places as possible to make it easy for you to use and to access our materials. So the e-learning course is in there, of course, and you can start and stop at any time. So even if it's 4 hours long, you can have your staff do it in chunks, and it'll just take them back to where they left off when they go back in. And when they're done, they can get the certificate of completion, and that'll automatically put in their name. So again, if anyone has any questions about the site or anything else about our materials, please let us know. So I see 2 more questions. So yes, it is free to obtain the hard copies of the manuals. So we are funded through the Section 5311 program. And so all of our materials, everything we offer, except for when we have conferences, sometimes you have to pay for the food when you come to our conferences, but everything else that we offer is free of charge, and we ship them for free. So like I said earlier, you can order up to 100 copies at a time. And the instructor's guide is download only, so you can print that and use that as you need to, but the learner's guide is a hard copy book that we will ship to you. And the e-learning is free also, so you can register and use any of our the courses that are on here. Lisa mentioned drug and alcohol related training, so we do have a 60-minute course for safety sensitive employees. That's the substance abuse awareness course. And then there's also a reasonable suspicion training for supervisors, which is I guess 120 minutes. So hopefully you'll find something useful on here. We also have courses, as you can see, from partner organizations. So check those out. And okay. So we are a couple minutes over time, so I think we'll close it out. I will type my email into the chat. Please let us know if we can help you. I just really want to thank you, Lisa, for a great presentation today. And it was wonderful to work with you on this project. And thanks everybody for joining. We hope to see you at another webinar or National RTAP event soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, another question came in. I don't know if anyone's still there, but no, we will not have a certificate for attending this course. Okay, bye everybody.